I'm Vin Matano.
I'm Sara Uy.
This is the Career Collective. See, I can't speak. See, this is what happens when I don't write anything down. This is the Career Collective podcast. Where do we talk about in this podcast?
We honestly have covered a lot
We
so
cover a
far.
lot of ground. We mostly talk about professional advice, corporate America, starting businesses, building personal brands, and I would say life in our 20s.
I was going to say, that's the only thing I was going to add is life in our 20s.
Exactly that. And on today's episode, we're talking about the first 90 days of a new job.
Yep. There's a lot you could probably do in the first 90 days to stand out. So we're going to cover all of our personal experiences of what we did in our first 90 days. So we're going to try to jog the memory from 6-7 years ago. And then we're also going to give probably our biggest tips on what we wish we would have done.
Let's get it. Before we do that, it's time to catch up. We gotta catch up as always.
Yes.
You had just gotten back from St. Martin relatively recently.
Yes, just got back from St. Martin. I actually did a whole St. Martin recommendations in my newsletter last week. So if you still subscribe to it, you will actually get the PDF, but it's an ideal day in the life and then 20 recommendations for beaches, dinner spots, beach clubs. Really, really cool, but it's my favorite place to go.
I've never been to St. Martin. What is St. Martin like? And then also give me the one or two top recommendations that you have on that list.
Okay, so St. Martin is, I'm biased, right? But isn't really comparable to any other Caribbean island just because I feel like a lot of Caribbean islands, you got to stay in an all-inclusive, you don't really go anywhere. You need a car in St. Martin.
Oh, wow.
There's 37 beaches. All of them are spectacular. So you want to definitely plan out which ones you're going to go to. Everyone has a different vibe. Since St. Martin is so close to St. Bart's as well, we do get the benefits of having those bougie beach clubs and, all that really cool, music on the beach and DJs and all of that cool stuff. So it's actually really cool to see how it's been changing over the last few years. They have music festivals there now and stuff, but it's also great to just relax, be with family. Me and Jonathan just got back from a family trip. We were there for Palm Sunday, so it was really good to just spend quality time with them. But what's been up with you?
I just got back from Florida.
Nice.
Not too long ago. It was last week. I think everyone that works remote always says oh, I can work from anywhere, but no one actually does. At least for me, even prior to my sales role, I never actually went somewhere else just to work. I would maybe take a vacation or a work conference, but never have I ever booked a trip and said, I'm going to work remote this whole week.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, me and Johnny went to St. Petersburg.
Oh, nice.
And first time we ever did it.
That's West Coast, right?
Yes.
Nice. I've never been to the West Coast.
Yeah, I literally just did the never eat soggy waffles in my head. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Never heard that?
No.
For their coordinates, it's north, east, southwest. You should never eat soggy waffles.
Oh, I do never eat sour watermelon.
Okay. Oh, I've never heard that one. Comment below. Which team are you on here?
The Jersey versus the Long Island.
Yeah, that's so funny. I never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the west side. It's basically part of Tampa.
I heard Tampa's really fun too.
Tampa is cool. So we were trying to go for more of a slower vibe.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really want to go to the bougie restaurants. We kind of just want something chill where we can go on walks after work or if we want to pop in somewhere, we don't need a reservation.
Yep.
But it's basically one and the same. They're so close to one. They're 20-minute drive away.
Oh, nice.
So we decided on St. Petersburg and we got this little bungalow and we honestly we just worked from there. We went to the beach one day. We did a dolphin tour. I don't know. We just
oh, sick.
Yeah,
did you see a lot of dolphins?
We did. We saw so many.
Oh my God, that's
it was
great.
Crazy. Yeah, no, we saw
I love that.
We must have saw 20 dolphins.
Wow.
It was pretty wild.
Jonathan, we have to do that if you're listening.
Oh yeah, we have a first live guest on the pod.
Yeah, we actually have a
studio guest.
Yeah, studio guest or an audience, you might say.
Sorry.
But yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm happy you guys had a good time. But let's get into it.
Let's get right into it. So you either started a new job or maybe you got promoted for a new position.
Yep.
Those first 90 days are really, really, really important. I would say the most important thing is just learning a ton, being a sponge and absorbing.
Yep.
I'm curious, if you started a new sales role, given our backgrounds in sales, what would your first 90 days look like?
Yeah, so I really do remember my first few weeks at Pareto, and I just remember kind of freaking out a little bit because you're coming out of college. As a college athlete, you had to really establish your name, your talent from scratch freshman year, right? So I really felt like that was the most relatable time that I was able to relate back to that time to be okay, how do I put my footprint in on this company to show them that I really want to be here and I want to be really successful? And I would actually ask that question to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And although that felt really uncomfortable in the first week or two, people really respected that I was clearly there to be successful, learn as much as I can. And as long as you put yourself out there and have an open mind and not scared to ask the hard questions, I think that's really important. So one thing, a piece of advice that I had gotten from my manager at the time was the best thing that you can do to learn from, everyone, not just other people that are in your position, but you want to be able to put 30 minutes of time block or just like a lunch or a coffee with a C-suite level executive, a VP, a director of sales, any position that you see yourself eventually being in the business, you should be reaching out to them and spending time with them. Even if you're brand new, it doesn't matter, right? People actually really respect that and love that. So within the first 90 days, every week I chose someone in a higher position than me. It could have been C-suite, VP, director level, manager level. And every week I chose someone different and put 30 minutes for lunch in their calendar. And not one person turned me down. I learned so much. And that's where I said to myself, like, I want to be a sales director at Pareto, and I am not going to think twice. Like, that is what I'm going to achieve. And that's what I did. So, it's cool to see yourself like planting those seeds to eventually understand, how you could be successful in the job that you're currently in, but then how you could be successful once you get to every single one of those positions that you met with. Throwing it back to you, what are some of the things that you remember for your first 90 days?
I got some good recommendation from a guy, Mark Siciliano, who's someone at Demandbase. He recommended 20 days of 20 meetings. And
Okay.
so your first 20 days should just be scheduling meetings with different people from the team. So
Internally.
yeah, for sure. So he recommended meeting with like salespeople, management, product specific folks. So they'll teach you something else. Take notes on all those meetings,
Yep.
and then ask those people like, who should I meet with and why?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably give you some really good advice. And then the other thing I would say is specifically in a sales role, I think it's super important to like shadow as many meetings as possible.
100%.
And if you're in person, you can kind of sneak off to the side and like, if they have conference rooms, I would always like sit in this corner of the conference room when the camera's not there, and I would just like listen to all these different calls. If you're remote, like try to join virtually if you can, if they let you. Because those are where you really hear people like talking the talk and like hearing the pain points, the value prop, and all that stuff.
And most companies will let you. So don't be afraid to ask the question of, hey, can I shadow you on this meeting? Because they know too that that's the role that you're eventually going to go into. So if they could support you in any way, shape, or form that they can, they're 100% going to. I even had some new business meetings in person, and my VP would just be like, hey, this is Sara. She's just shadowing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like even clients don't even mind, especially, the fact that everyone's going to learn somehow, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they've all been in your shoes before. So,
and the other thing too, when you ask these people like, hey, can we shadow you on your calls? Like offer something in return.
mm-hmm.
So be like, hey, do you mind if I shadow on your calls and I'll take notes for you?
Yeah. Oh, that's
or,
a good one too,
yeah,
taking notes.
Or even like help with some of the prep work. Be like, yeah, I'll help you prepare for this meeting. Sometimes, most cases they might say, don't worry about it. It's really fine. But the fact that you like went above and beyond to like offer that. And if they do say yes, that's cool too. Because now you're actually like really involved in the process. You're taking the notes. If you're helping with prep work, now you're like learning about the whole sales process. So I'd recommend kind of like offering something in return, even if they don't wind up taking it or not.
Yeah, I actually have a really funny story when it comes to prep work. So I was the AE that absolutely hated doing prep for my meetings.
I can see that.
And yeah, a lot of people can. And my VP of sales, Kurt, at the time, if he listens to this, he's literally just going to laugh and sweat. But he would sometimes accompany me on really big meetings that I was like, Kurt, like I could definitely use some backup. And of course, I would ask him last minute if he could attend, he would. And the dreadful question came after that was just send me the prep that you did. I would start immediately sweating. I'm like, fuck, like I didn't do prep. Like I hated doing prep. It's like this small thing of admin work that is so annoying to do. But let me tell you, it definitely made or break the meeting. And it definitely sometimes made or break. Like if I was prepared enough to even close that deal on that meeting versus having one more, right? So doing preparation in terms of what that actually means is like know what the company does, who you're meeting with, because I hate to admit this, but there's been multiple times where I've just been so back to back going into a meeting. I'm like, holy shit, like, what does this company do again? Like, I don't even know where I am. Like, I don't know where I'm at in my day. So take time and time block into your calendar to do meeting prep, even if you're doing it all at once, if you're just doing one at a time. Know how big the company is, know how and guess how you're going to potentially support them, even though it could be a totally different way. But going in with like kind of a game plan of how you think you could support them is going to help. Any references in terms of companies that you have helped in their space prior, it's really good to drop those names on the call because it builds credibility. All of that stuff should be included in your prep. I don't know if you would add anything else.
Yeah, I would say too, like, don't overthink it. Don't think like, I need to be an expert coming into this call.
Right.
You can come with some hypothesis and then check those hypotheses with the person you're meeting with. So for example, sometimes you meet with a company and it's like maybe pretty complex or maybe like the website is not that clear and you're like, what exactly does this company do? You can go in that call and say, hey, listen, I'm not like an expert on your company, but based on the website, I believe you guys do X, Y, and Z. Do I have that correct?
Yeah.
And they'll correct you, but you don't want to come in saying, what do you guys do? Because then that shows you did no research.
Yeah, you make a really good point too. And what Vin is trying to say as well is like, you don't need to be an absolute expert in their industry, but you kind of do want to come off as one, like an industry expert, but just do enough research where it piques their interest that they know you've clearly done the research, right? So like Vin says, you don't need to know absolutely everything, but just knowing one or two things in their industry is going to make you come across as an industry expert. And people love that because they know that you can relate to what they're going through at that time.
I've always went with the strategy of like, I want this person to like pretend like they're teaching me. So yes, I have like a base level knowledge of whatever it is. Maybe it's the product you're selling or the industry, but you kind of want to like break that fourth wall and be like, hey, I actually don't know. What do you think? That way they coach you. So for example, like even if you are new, like just own it. Just be like, hey, I'm actually new. I'm only like 2 months into this role. This is what I know about this, but like, how do you guys think about it? And then they feel like they're actually helping you out and they're going to share way more versus you saying, okay, I know everything. Meanwhile, you really don't.
Yeah.
2 months, you don't know everything.
I love
It
that.
takes so long to know like the product in and out or the service in and out, depending on what you sell.
Yeah, I think also too, what's really good point, because you bring this up in terms of like a little bit of feedback, but if you do get permission to do the prep for the meeting, like ask that person at the end of the meeting if you did good with your prep.
That's true.
Like, did I prepare you the right information? Maybe you're completely off. And like, that's the day that you learn that what meeting prep should look like for your organization. So it's things like that. But I feel like this could be a whole nother topic of conversation for an episode of meeting prep in itself.
Yeah, we'll do some stuff on sales. The other thing that I think is a good recommendation is trying to, what do people call it? They call it their like knowledge diet or something like that, where they're like, what do you consume on a day-to-day basis? So if you are starting a new job and it's in a new industry, you might need to change what you consume, right? So let's just say you previously sold logistical tech, I don't know, whatever. And now you're moving into marketing tech. Well, now you need to know like a whole bunch of new things about the marketing tech industry.
Even your algorithm is probably like all logistics.
Oh, totally.
And now you're like, wait a second, I'm not even doing this anymore.
Exactly that. So what would you recommend to someone to like help change what they're consuming?
Yeah, I love this question because I actually had such a great conversation with a client just yesterday, and I had asked them, like, what do you guys do from 8:30 to 9 a.m. Eastern time? Because you guys should really do some 9 before 9 cold calls. So that's basically taking your 9 hottest leads and calling them before 9 a.m. before the busy day starts. You want to catch those sales leaders before they're in meetings, external meetings, internal meetings, whatever that is. And they actually came back and they were like, we actually do something a little bit different. And I actually loved it. Don't get me wrong, you should still fit in your 9 before 9. However, and they loved that as well. But something that they do, which I thought was so genius that every company should do, that you should do as well, is 30 minutes before every single day. Obviously, this takes subscribing and changing your algorithm, right? But subscribing to newsletters and stuff. But they will basically go through all the newsletters that they're subscribed to that are relative to their industry, podcasts, books that they've read, things that they've seen in the news, and they will basically just consume all of that content within the first 30 minutes of their day between 8:30 and 9 a.m. That way, going into the rest of the day, throughout their calls, emails, they actually know what's going on in the industry, like real time. There's so many ways that you can do this. So it's like subscribing to newsletters, knowing what's going on in the world from those, just kind of like your social media, like how Vin said, like just kind of retraining your algorithm to show you things that are relative to the industry that you're working in. But I think we actually have some ones that we really love ourselves in terms of not only that, but also another thing that's good to do is follow certain people on LinkedIn that are in your industry that are quote unquote influencers in the space. And I think we actually have some samples and examples for you.
I would also, one more thing, last thing I would add is Google News.
Google News.
So you can set up like triggers. So let's just say you are in sales recruiting.
Yep.
You can set up like triggers around sales recruiting. So anytime something like that's mentioned in the news, you get that email to you.
Someone clip that because that was a great tip. Super tangible. You could do that instantly.
And I'm sure there's an AI tool where you can like curate. I don't know if there are any, but I'm sure there are where you can like curate your own news feed.
Yep.
So that's something that I'd probably recommend too.
That's awesome.
But speaking of, I would say like, okay, so I would say the big three: newsletter, podcasts, and social media.
Yep.
So for you specifically, like what are some newsletters that you love most?
I love Morning Brew. Jonathan actually got me started on Morning Brew, and I love it because I feel like I start my day, I actually know what's going on in the world.
Yeah, brief.
Yeah, like really brief. I feel like it's kind of like the world news for dummies a little bit too, because I feel like I read it like I'm speaking to somebody. So if you're not subscribed to Morning Brew, definitely do that because it's just so great and covers so many topics. The Selling Sara newsletter, I think is pretty fun. It's a little bit less serious, but there's always sales tips in there, of course. Maybe a little brief TikTok video of sales tips as well. And then I also put some fun like after work spotlight in there, especially if you're in New York City. I give a lot of like New York City restaurant recommendations, travel recommendations because I travel all the time. But those are the two that I obviously really like. But
do you use Kit or Beehive?
Kit?
Kit?
Yeah.
You like it?
Haley kind of does it because she's ghostwriting for me.
Oh, okay. So I saw Kit's doing studios. Have you seen this?
No, what is it?
So they're investing in like studio spaces for their customers.
That's cool.
So I think they have one in Chicago, and then they're opening one up in the New Jersey, New York area. So if you're a Kit customer like you can just access it and you can book time. It's like a podcast studio.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, we should look into it.
Wow, we should. What would you add to newsletters?
Oh, newsletters. Okay. Newsletters, I would say, well, I think it does depend on your industry. I think you should always subscribe to one or two that are just very general, like Morning Brew.
Yep.
That's the one I subscribe to because no matter what role you have, you kind of need to know what's going on in the world.
1000%.
If you are in business or if you're in sales, you need to be able to like small talk.
Yep.
Obviously, without getting into like politics, you don't want to do that with the news. But I would say Morning Brew is definitely the one where I get like my general news from. And then I'm in like the creator economy space now. So I subscribe to a lot of the ones that fall within that. So Colin and Samir's Press Publish, highly, highly recommend. They just cover the entire creator economy.
Yep.
Like in depth.
Wow.
So it's super, super good. It's very bite sized. There's another one by JT Barnett called Extra Value, similar vibes. That one, they kind of just give you like the news in the creator economy. They don't do like deep dives, just like link articles. So that's like easy if you wanted to jump through it. And then I also launched my own newsletter.
There you go.
Just launched it last week.
Let's hear about it.
It's called The Transparent.
I love it.
So like last year I had this idea where I was like, oh, I'm doing a lot of build and public content. Like I just want to go even more, like be more transparent. And then I never did anything with it. I finally like got around to it and
wait, this is big news.
It was big news, big news.
I feel like you're just kind of like sliding in there.
I made a LinkedIn video about it. I did it with Beehive.
Okay.
So I did like this. They did this whole like brand activation on a subway in New York City.
Oh, I saw you do that.
Yeah. So they like they branded a subway like Beehive all branded and stuff like that. And then they worked with I don't know if you ever went to Creator Economy NYC or heard about them. They do a lot of events in New York.
Okay.
It's a Creator Economy group, and they invited them, and it was just like a meetup underground, but we shot like a bunch of content.
I saw you guys do that. It was really cool.
So it was unique. And then that was like I made a video about that, and then I kind of talked about like my newsletter, and that was like the launch video, or whatever.
Really cool.
I really haven't promoted too much yet, only in that video, but it's basically just going to be more transparency into like me running a business and like sharing my numbers and like profit and loss statements.
I loved when you were like,
stuff.
I mean, I'm nosy, but I loved when you were like sharing your numbers and like building in public. And obviously you still do that now, but they are so relatable. Like I feel like I'm watching them and I'm always like cheering you on. I'm like, come on, Vin, like you got this. Like it's really, really cool to see, especially someone who's months behind you. I feel like I'm kind of like taking a look into, okay, like maybe these are some of the things I should do next. Or like you really spark the creativity in my head as well. Cause I'm like, ooh, Vin's doing this. Like I should be inspired to do something along those lines, or just giving me ideas. But honestly, if anyone is like an aspiring entrepreneur, now we're getting off topic, but you know, Vin is a great person to follow with all of his videos, and you do great at editing them. Oh my God, I'm like envious of how well your videos come out.
Yeah. Well, likewise. We have very different styles of content.
Very different.
I always say I wish I can like be more spontaneous in my content.
And I always say that I wish I could be more creative.
And I just like
if you want to balance both.
Every time I try, it just doesn't seem like it works out for me.
I speak to the camera, Vin plans out everything, and they come out phenomenal. So.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to the topic of the newsletter, yeah, we'll put our links for our newsletters down below.
That's a good idea.
That's recommended to consume some content that way. The other one I would say probably would be social media. So who do you follow on social media, that sort of thing. You're obviously much deeper into like the sales community, so maybe we might have some different recommendations. But for you, who are some like key people to follow on LinkedIn? Yeah,
I mean, Will Aiken, I'll shout him out because I feel like I've been watching him since the very beginning, like in COVID time. Will Aiken is so funny. He's super humorous, and he's just really relatable when it comes to all things cold calling, sales, closing deals. And he does a lot of like fun skits, and it makes you remember the fun side of sales, and it don't have to take it too seriously. Jen Ellen Knuth, oh my God, I'm obsessed with her. I think we both are, but she's one, an amazing human, two, just has awesome content. She speaks a lot about like revenue generation and kind of like more of the advanced stuff, but that's really good for people that are looking to advance in their career in sales. I feel like she gets into the nitty gritty and you start to understand it when you become a little bit more senior. And I think that's a really good place to consume some great content as well. She also does, do you notice she does like those foster dog?
I saw that.
Yeah, so her
Every
husband's a
weekend.
photographer, I think.
I did
And
not know that until she posted that.
yeah, so her husband's a photographer, Jen. Sue me if I'm giving wrong information here. I don't think I am though, but her husband is a professional photographer and they basically volunteer at a shelter in Chicago and they go there and they take professional photos of the dogs in the shelter because the photos that they currently have are like really not that great.
Mm.
So he like gets these awesome shots of
The dogs
foster
look special,
dogs.
too.
Yeah, they get adopted faster because they have better professional photos. So like her stuff is just so cool. And it's like a balance of that and sales. And then the last one I would say is Leslie Douglas. She just has like really great educational stuff. She's a mom. She's super relatable. She's such a lovely person as well, which makes it even better. But she actually just put out today like a bunch of cold call openers from different sales leaders that she has interviewed for as well. My opener is in there of, you know, you're going to hate me. This is a cold call, but she just overall puts great stuff out specifically to sales reps that are junior, mid-level. So she's a great one to follow too. But who do you follow?
Those are some good recs. I'll say I'll go more. So you cover the sales route. I'll go more of maybe the like creator specific route.
It's a good balance of both.
Yeah, it's a good balance. I will say if you're looking to like actually start doing video content, Raina Van, I'm gonna mess up their last name. Raina Van Boozcom.
I remember you telling me about them.
Yeah, in terms of like how to just like the basics of
Mhm.
creating a video, in terms of like framing, the angle of your camera, or
Mhm.
filming in front of a light, highly recommend. And then the other one that I recently just found, that I'm consuming a lot of his content, Zach Hanavar.
Okay.
Hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's actually an entrepreneur in the creator economy space, so he manages a bunch of like really, really big YouTube creators.
Mhm.
Yes Theory, they have like 10 million subscribers. He
Wow.
manages their business side. And so he kind of shares a lot of like this week in my life as an entrepreneur sort of thing. And I really like his editing style, so I'd recommend them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great recommendations there. And those are all people that you can literally go out and follow on LinkedIn. They're on other social channels as well. But those are really good recommendations to start surrounding yourself with. Even if you're not even in a sales role yet, try adding some of those people today, for example, when you're listening to this. And that will start getting you to consume some really good content of the area that you want to go into. So if it's sales, if it's content creation, those are some 6 people that you can actually really get a lot out of.
It's kind of like you want to be in like the water cooler conversations. You want to like be in the know.
Yep.
And so if you're thinking about LinkedIn, trying to follow the right people and like curate a feed, it's like, what are the top thought leaders talking about? What are the current trends? And you might not be able to know that unless you're in on those conversations,
Mhm.
which is really important to follow those folks. One thing I want to ask too, for your first 90 days of work, do you have any like stories or like interesting things you can share about like maybe stuff that maybe didn't go so well in your first 90 days, whether it's a promotion or a new job?
Oh, I have to think about that one.
I'll let you think on that because I have one that I can share.
Yeah, let's hear yours.
Well, first off, small story. When I first started at Demand Base, my first job out of college, I kept
Yep.
calling my boss Mr. Rooney, like over messages, and his name was Kevin. He was like, "Dude, just call me Kevin." And so that was like a little embarrassing.
Especially in sales, and I
In
feel like
sales.
demand based too, like similar culture to Pareto. People are like, just call me Kevin.
I didn't know it was my first job, so I was like calling the VP of sales development.
You did the right thing though.
Yeah.
I'd recommend that. Always go like Mr. or Mrs. first.
guess.
For, I don't know, maybe, but until
It's a safe. I guess it's safe.
it's a
Yeah.
respectful thing too.
I would like email him, yeah, Mr. Tool, because his last name was Tool, and he was like, just call me Jay. And then when I started with Kevin, I was like Mr. Rooney. And then I found out later on that they would always joke about that I
Oh.
like call them Mr. Anyway, but I did have a funny story. So to your point earlier, you're like, make sure you get time on the calendar with the executives.
Yep.
So when I started at Demand Base, we were in the New York office, and the VP of Sales was there,
Okay.
and she managed the mid-market AE team.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be on that team eventually, but I just started. But I was like, okay, that's the team I want to be on. But she was very intimidating. And maybe I thought she was intimidating in my head, and maybe she really wasn't. But I
Yep.
just started. I was intimidated by her, and I was like, I never want to go up to her. So finally, like a few months in, I saw a LinkedIn notification that it was her like 5 or 6 year work anniversary, something crazy. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. I was like,
Yep.
you know what? She sits like not too far from me. I should just go up to her desk and just congratulate her, just
Yep.
to say like congrats or whatever. So I finally got the courage to do so. I went up to her. I was like, hey, I saw on LinkedIn you hit your 5 or 6 year work anniversary. Congratulations. And she looks at me. She goes, oh yeah, thank you so much. I actually just put in my 2 weeks today. I was like, oh, I wanted to like crawl under my desk and just be like, I should have just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
That was just a funny story. I still recommend going up to them. And the lesson there
You
is
did the right thing both times.
both times did the right thing. The lesson though is like I should have did it way earlier. I shouldn't have waited that long
Yeah.
because that I feel like maybe it just created an awkward situation that didn't need to be awkward.
Yeah, but I also think you did the right thing. And how many other people at your level went up to her and said that? Probably not
Yeah, that's
many.
true. Yeah, always go up to them. I would say is a lesson learned there, and do it early. Like I wish I did that earlier. Just like going up, being more like ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like go up to the executive and just be like, hey, I'm Vin. I'm new here.
Yeah.
They'll probably love that.
Yeah.
I would
Absolutely.
hope so at least.
No, 100%. I think you did the right thing all three times, honestly.
Okay, fair
Mr.
enough.
Rooney, Mr. Toole, and congratulations,
And
no
Mrs.
matter what.
Louis.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. My first 90 days, was there anything? I really can't remember. I'm sure there were one or two
All right, fair enough,
things,
fair
but
enough.
I can't remember.
All right, so we talked about what to do in the first 90 days. We talked about some things to help your knowledge diet, I'm calling it. We talked about some funny stories that I messed up on, but I think what's not maybe talked about enough is like the first 90 days can feel like super frustrating because sometimes you're just like, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I still kind of don't get it. Like, I don't know if you can relate to that at all.
1000%. Now, if you're listening to this and you're in your first 90 days and you're like, I actually am frustrated, I can almost guarantee it that if you are in sales, it's probably because you're adding unqualified leads. What I mean by this is that you're probably booking meetings with people that aren't your stakeholders, aren't your decision makers. They are not your ideal ICP as a whole. And you're just thinking to myself or yourself, thinking like, oh my God, like, what am I doing wrong? So I have a really good example of this. I booked my very first meeting and it was during COVID when we were fully remote. And I was actually up at our beach house in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I remember I could not sleep that night. I was like, oh my God, like my meeting that I booked tomorrow. And my manager, Zach Zarin at the time, is still one of my really, really good friends. He'll remember this, but I was like texting Zach like all morning. I'm like, Zach, like he's going to show. I know it. Like I confirmed it. Like I gave him a call and I was like, hey, like Chris, like, are you making the call? He's like, yep, I'll see you there. I'm like, oh my God, like my very first meeting attended. Like I'm so excited. So it turns out, going back to the prep that we were speaking about, I had prepped on the complete wrong company. So very similar company names, just like didn't do the right prep. But here I am thinking I'm meeting with like a Fortune 500. And it was a company that had 5 employees
Oh my.
in reality. So Zach ran the entire meeting because, again, I'm just shadowing at this point, but I had booked the meeting and I had asked Zach, can I shadow?
Right.
So I'm just seeing like the basic train wreck, like start from top to bottom. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Because Zach's like, I know you guys do X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 because I did all the prep.
Oh.
And the guy's like, that's just not what we do. And Zach's like, oh,
Oh
well,
God.
we thought it was like Sarah. He's like messaging me on the side, like, is this not the right company? And then he's obviously doing like quick backward, like, research as the guy is saying. And he's like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Like, we've researched the wrong company, just transparently. Do you mind just like stating what you did? Thankfully, the guy was nice enough to just be like, we get this mistake a lot, and thank God, because I was just like, oh my God, like, did I just, whatever. Obviously, I still did the wrong thing. And when you go back, it was very easy to just research the right company. I just completely made a mistake. The entire meeting, I'm just like, I am wasting Zach's time. Like, I looked up to Zach at the time. I still do. And I just felt like I completely disappointed him. And then, of course, after the meeting had concluded, which it only lasted about 15 minutes out of the 30 because there just like was not a qualified lead, Zach just sat down with me. Like, we went through the prep, like how to actually research a company, which is the most basic thing that you can do. Like, just Google the freaking company. I just felt like such an idiot. I felt like a hole in my stomach. I lost sleep that night because I was just like, I'm so excited. And then to be so disappointed like that. And that was within my first 90 days. So that was really frustrating. And to be honest, my advice to you would be, if you are someone that is facing booking meetings and they're just not qualified, or you think they are, but then your account executive says they're not, just keep booking meetings. Like, that's the best thing you could do. Like, don't stop, because the hardest thing to do is book meetings. So if you're booking them, you're doing something right. And eventually you're going to realize when you're shadowing these meetings, what is really good and what's not. And one day it's just going to all click and you're going to be like, holy shit, I get it now. And I realize all the mistakes that I've been making, and it's just going to click for you. So it does get better, but I'm telling you, the hardest thing to do is book meetings. So if you can do that, step one is green flag for you because a lot of people can't do that. So just keep booking them and explain to your manager, like, listen, I'm going to book as much as I can. I'm going to obviously make sure I'm doing my research, but if there's one or two that are unqualified, like that's normal, but one day it's going to click.
I'll say to that point, when I got promoted to an AE, so I was like closing business myself, or I noticed when we would hire a new AE and they were like coming to demand base for the first time.
Yep.
I would actually always recommend having them take discovery calls with unqualified leads because in the beginning at least.
Good practice.
Great practice. You have nothing to lose. If they mess up, they can't buy anyway.
Also, sometimes you'll get like a cheeky small deal that you're like, ooh, like, wait a second.
Exactly.
That's the confidence that you need at that point.
You need your up at bats.
Yep.
You need as many as possible because
I love that.
If the cards fall in your favor and you have a really big meeting and you don't have enough calls or practice, you're unfortunately like you're not going to do as good.
Right.
So I always recommend, like, especially to the new reps, I'm like, if I get any inbound that are unqualified, I'll pass them to you.
Yeah.
And make that known. Like, tell the marketing team, like, if there's anything that's unqualified, let me know. I will take the call. I need the practice.
Yep.
You might get something from it, or the best value you can get from it is just like learning how to run the process.
You can't lose.
You cannot lose. Now there comes a point where you're like, okay, great, I'm ready, and I don't need to take any of these inbound meetings anymore.
Yep.
That's a different story. But when you start, I highly recommend taking those calls.
And like you just said, like it will click one day to be like, okay, I'm good. Like I know what's right, I know what's wrong, but I have had the practice. I'm ready to rock. Like I don't want to waste my time on these anymore. So there will come a time where you're just like, I'm ready to rock.
Exactly that. Is there anything else that you want to cover with this episode? I think
I feel like we covered
I feel like we covered a lot.
I feel like we covered a lot and went into really great detail, like more than we usually do, which we're going to try to do more of, just so you guys can have some real life examples to walk away from and hopefully tailor to the role that you're in now. But should we tell them about the next episode?
Next episode, why don't you, go ahead. You could do it.
So the next episode, what we want to do is collate a bunch of questions from you guys. It could be anything about anything, entrepreneurship, sales, life, personal things. It could actually be any question in the book, and we are going to cover it on the next episode.
Yep. So no real agenda. We're just going to answer your guys' questions.
Yep. And
that's it. And we're learning as we go. We're trying to figure out that we paused this one like 1,000 times, actually.
I know we were a little unprepared today, but we ended up coming out with some good stuff.